Dad, the Harper name holds me back. It makes me feel small, my son said, smiling as if he hadn't just shattered me in front of 50 guests at his engagement party. I stayed quiet. I always did. But on his wedding day, when he stood up and announced he was leaving that name behind forever, something changed. They saw a 72-year-old garbage man sitting in the back row. What they didn't see was a father who had already made his decision. And when I finally spoke one microphone, one moment, everything they built began to fall apart. Thank you for being here with me today. It truly means more than you know. Before we go any further, take a second and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What city or country are you in right now? I read every single one. Also, just a gentle note, parts of this story are creatively adapted for storytelling and learning purposes. Any similarities to actual people or places are coincidental, but the message behind it is something I believe can genuinely help. 6 months ago, I thought I knew Derek Harper. I thought I understood what mattered to him, but I didn't know anything. Not yet. It was January, middle of a Chicago winter, the kind of cold that gets into your bones. We were at some French restaurant downtown, one of those places where the menu doesn't have prices and waiters move like they're performing surgery. Derek had insisted on it for the engagement party, said it was appropriate. I showed up in my good Navy suit, the only one I owned that wasn't work sea clothes. Derek was already there with Gabrielle, his fiancée. She looked perfect, hair done, fancy dress that probably cost more than my mortgage. Her father, Charles Westbrook, sat at the head table like he owned the place. There were maybe 40 people there, friends of theirs. I recognized 3 faces. The rest were strangers in expensive clothes, holding champagne and laughing at jokes I didn't get. Derek stood up to make a toast. I figured he'd thank everyone, say something nice about Gabrielle, maybe mention me. Instead, he said something that stopped my heart. And Gabrielle and I have an announcement, he said, smiling. When we get married, I'll be taking a new name. Derek Westbrook Harper. He paused. Westbrook first, of course. The room erupted. People smiled, nodded, said how romantic it was, how modern. I just sat there, my water glass heavy in my hand. I looked at Derek, waiting for him to glance my way. He didn't. He was too busy soaking up a tension arm around Gabrielle, like they'd won something. I waited until the speeches ended, until the crowd thinned. Then I walked to where Derek stood on the outdoor patio smoking. That was new. I didn't know he smoked. Derek? I said quietly. Can we talk? He turned, blowing smoke. Dad. Hey, great party, right? You're changing your name, yeah. He shrugged. Westbrook Harper. Nice ring to it. I stared. You're putting their name first? Well, yeah. Makes sense. Gabrielle's family is... I was what? My voice sharpened. Better than ours. Derek sighed like I was being difficult. Dad, don't make this a thing. It's just a name, just a name. Something tightened in my chest. Derek. That's our name, your mother's name. He looked away, flicking ash. Exactly. That's why I need something more. Harper is a working-class name. Dad Westbrook opens doors. Where are you going? I repeated slowly. And where's that? So casual. I'm marrying into a family that matters, building a life that matters. I need a name that reflects that. He took another drag, then looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not quite pity, not quite contempt. You want the truth, he said. Harper embarrasses me when I tell people my name at networking events at client dinners. They look at me like I'm the help, like I'm there to fix their plumbing or take out their trash. That name makes me feel small. The words hit like a punch. I actually stepped back. Small, I whispered. Yeah. No shame in his voice. I'm sorry if that hurts, but it's the truth. Westbrook Harper sounds like someone who belongs in the rooms I want to be in. Harper alone. He shrugged. That's who you are, Dad. Not who I want to be. I wanted to say 100 things about the 40 years I spent building that name, about starting with nothing and turning it into something people respected, about how his mother carried that name with pride when we had nothing but each other. But I didn't. Because looking at my son in his Italian suit with his Swiss watch and cigarette, I realized something. He wasn't just rejecting the name. He was rejecting me. Everything I was, everything I'd built. You really think that little of us? I asked quietly. Derek's expression softened slightly. It's not about you, Dad. It's about me. My future. Your future. I nodded slowly, feeling something cold settle in my gut. Got it. I turned and walked away. Through that fancy restaurant with its cloth napkins and crystal past all those people who thought my son was so romantic. None of them knew what it meant, what he was really saying. I got in my truck, old reliable 20 years of service, and drove through empty Chicago streets. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The heater barely worked. I didn't notice. All I could hear was Derek's voice. Harper embarrasses me. That's who you are, Dad. Not who I want to be. Something inside me broke that night. Not the kind you can fix, the kind that changes you forever. I'd given him everything. Every opportunity I never had. Private school, college, that fancy condo in Gold Coast when he couldn't afford it, a monthly allowance so he wouldn't struggle. And this was how he repaid me. By deciding our name, the name his mother and I built, the name that represented 40 years of sacrifice, wasn't good enough. I pulled into my driveway in Southside. The house was dark and quiet. I sat there, engine off, staring at nothing. And I knew right then, this wasn't over. Not even close. Something was about to change. I could feel it the same way I felt that Chicago winter cutting through everything. My son wanted to climb higher, fine. But he was about to learn something I'd known my whole life. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. You want to know who William Harper is? I'll tell you. I'm the guy you see driving a garbage truck at 5 in the morning. The guy in dirty work boots at the diner. The guy your kids probably laughed at on career day at school. But here's what you don't see. Derek said Harper was a working class name. He was right, and I'm proud of that. But my son never understood that. He never wanted to understand. Let me tell you who I really am. Most mornings I'm up before the sun, 5 a.m. Sometimes earlier, not because I have to be. I own the company. I do it because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. This particular morning, just another Tuesday in Chicago, I pulled into the Harper Waste Management Yard at 5:15. The place was already alive. Trucks warming up, drivers checking routes, the smell of diesel and coffee mixing in the cold air. "Morning, boss," called out Martinez, one of my route supervisors. He'd been with me 12 years. "Morning," I said, pulling on my work jacket. Not the fancy kind. The kind with my name stitched on the pocket and oil stains that won't come out. I walked the lot like I did every morning. Checked the trucks, made sure the equipment was solid. Asked the guys about their families, their routes, any problems they were seeing. "T. Harper," someone yelled. It was Tommy, one of the new drivers. Hydraulics acting up on truck 7. I grabbed my toolbox. "Show me." 20 minutes later, My hands were black with grease, and the hydraulic was running smooth. Tommy looked at me like I'd performed magic. "Boss, you didn't have to." "Yeah, I did," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "Can't have you out there with faulty equipment. Not safe." That's the thing Derek never got. These weren't just employees. These were people who trusted me, who counted on me for their paychecks, their benefits, their kids' college funds. I didn't sit in some office pretending to be above them. I was with them. By 7, I was at Pete's Diner, same booth I'd sat in for 20 years. Pete Kowalski, Polish guy who'd owned the place longer than I'd known him, saw me walk in. "But morning, Will," he called from behind the counter. "Usual. That's right, Pete. 2 eggs over easy bacon, wheat toast, black coffee. Same breakfast I'd eaten since I was 30. The diner was full of working people, construction guys, nurses coming off night shift, transit workers. Nobody knew I owned a company worth millions. To them, I was just Will the guy in work boots who smelled like diesel. And that was fine by me. A couple of guys at the next table were complaining about their boss. Some corporate type who didn't know the first thing about their work but made twice their salary. They glanced at me. Probably figured I was one of them. I was just in a different way. Pete brought my coffee. "How's Derek?" he asked. I felt something tighten in my chest. "Getting married soon?" "That's good. That's good." Pete didn't push. He could read people. After breakfast, I headed to the office, not some downtown high-rise, just a simple building next to the yard. My office was on the 2nd floor, small with a window overlooking the trucks. Carol Jennings, my CFO, knocked on the open door at 8:30. She'd been with me 19 years, knew the business inside and out. "A morning, William," she said, setting down a folder. "Monthly numbers." I opened it. Revenue $31.7 million. Employees 287. Profit margins holding steady. "Looking good?" I said. Carol smiled. "You know, most CEOs of $30 million companies don't show up covered in hydraulic fluid." I looked down at my hands. Still had grease under my nails. Most CEOs didn't start by driving the trucks themselves. She could come. "When are you going to buy yourself a new truck?" she asked, nodding toward the window. My old pickup sat in the lot, 20 years old, dented, rusted in spots. "This one still runs." Carol shook her head, but she was smiling. She got it. After 19 years, she understood. I built this company from an $87,500 insurance check and 2 beat-up garbage trucks. That check came when my wife died when Derek was 8 years old. I could have sat on that money, maybe gotten a regular job, played it safe. Instead, I bought those trucks, hired 3 guys, worked 18-hour days, drove routes during the day, handled paperwork at night after Derek went to bed. 27 years later, we pulled in over $30 million a year. We employed 287 people, good jobs, real benefits. I knew most of them by name. Went to their kids' graduations, helped out when times got tough. But my son thought I was just some garbage man. He had no idea what I'd actually built. He had no idea what any of this meant. I sat back in my chair looking out at the yard, the trucks rolling out, the guys doing honest work, building something real. Derek said Harper was a name that embarrassed him, that it made him feel small. But he was wrong. Harper wasn't small. Harper was everything I'd fought for, everything his mother and I believed in. Hard work, dignity, taking care of people who depended on you. My son wanted a bigger name, a name that opened doors to fancy rooms, full of fancy people. He could have it, but he was about to learn those doors swing both ways. Because Derek didn't just think I was beneath him. He was planning something. Something that would cost me everything if I didn't see it coming. And I almost didn't see it. Almost. Gabriel Westbrook was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that makes men stupid. And my son, unfortunately, was no exception. Derek said he'd met someone amazing. I should have known right then. 4 months before the wedding, Derek insisted I meet her. "Dad, you're going to love Gabrielle," he told me over the phone. "She's everything I've been looking for." That should have been my second warning. He picked a steakhouse downtown. White tablecloths, $200 steaks, wine list thicker than a phone book, the kind of place where they bring you warm bread and act like they're doing you a favor. I showed up in khakis and a clean button-down. Felt underdressed the moment I walked in. Derek and Gabrielle were already seated. She saw me first, and her face lit up with a smile that was probably practiced in front of a mirror. Up to Harper. She stood heiressed both my cheeks like we were in some European movie. "Derek has told me so much about you." I'll bet he had. She was wearing a designer dress I didn't know brands, but I knew expensive when I saw it. Jewelry that caught the light every time she moved. Hair and makeup like she'd just stepped off a magazine cover. Next to her, Derek looked different, stiffer, like he was performing. "I'm dead," he said, standing to shake my hand. Formal. "Thanks for coming." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, sitting down. Gabrielle immediately launched into conversation. "Derek tells me you're in sanitation." The way she said it, sanitation, made it sound like I clean toilets for a living. "Waste management," I corrected. "I own the company." "Oh, of course. Harper Waste Management." She smiled, but her eyes didn't. It must have been so difficult, starting from nothing. "That's so humble." Humble? The word hung in the air like an insult wrapped in a compliment. The waiter came. Gabrielle ordered the most expensive steak without looking at the price. Lobster tail on the side, a glass of wine that cost $40. Derek ordered the same thing she did. I got the ribeye and water. "So tell me about the business," Gabrielle said, leaning forward like she genuinely cared. "Derek mentioned you still work the route sometimes. That must be exhausting at your age." "At my age, I was 71, not dead." "I like staying involved," I said. "Can't manage what you don't understand." "How authentic," she said. The word dripped with condescension. "Most men your age would have retired by now. You must be tired all the time." Translation: "You're old and you should step aside." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Gabrielle, my dad built a really successful company. He has almost 300 employees." "Oh, I know." She touched his arm, possessive. "It's very impressive for a local business." For a local business. Like Harper Waste was some mom-and-pop operation barely scraping by. I took a breath. "And what about your family? Gabriel Derek mentioned your father's in business too." Her smile got brighter. "Oh yes, environmental consulting. Very prestigious. We work with corporations, government agencies. My father has connections all over Chicago." "Sounds important," I said flatly. "It is." She sipped her wine. Derek and I were actually discussing how our family's businesses might complement each other, waste management and environmental consulting. There's real synergy there. Synergy. I hated that word. Derek jumped in. "We were thinking there could be partnership opportunities down the line. You know, modernize Harper Waste's approach." "Derek tells me everything about the business," Gabrielle interrupted, smiling at me. "How hands-on you are. How you still drive trucks sometimes. It's so quaint." Quaint. Another insult dressed up as a compliment. I watched her throughout dinner. The way she touched Derek constantly. Arm, shoulder, hand, marking territory. The way she answered questions I'd asked him. The way she steered every conversation back to her family, their connections, their world, and Derek. My son sat there letting it happen, nodding along, smiling, that tight smile. He barely looked at me. At one point, I asked him about work. Before he could answer, Gabrielle cut in. Oh, Derek, so talented, completely wasted in his current position. Once we're married, my father has some opportunities lined up. Real career advancement. Does he now? I said, looking at Derek that right? Derek nodded. Gabrielle's father thinks I have potential. Potential? Like 20 years of education I'd paid for wasn't enough. The bill came. $280 for 3 people. Gabrielle didn't reach for her purse. Derek pulled out a credit card, the one I was still paying for. I didn't say anything, just watched. Mr. Harper, Gabrielle said as we stood to leave. Thank you so much for dinner. It was lovely getting to know the man who raised Derek. She paused, tilting her head. You must be so proud of how far he's come. How far he's come. Away from me, away from Harper, away from everything I taught him. I drove home that night with my gut twisted in knots. Something was wrong. I couldn't name it, couldn't prove it, but I felt it deep in my bones. The next morning, I called Gregory Palmer. We'd been friends for 27 years. He was my lawyer, but more than that, he was someone I trusted. Greg, I need you to look into someone for me. Who? I'm a Gabrielle Westbrook, Derek's fiancée. Gregory laughed. Well, you're just being an overprotective dad. Maybe, I said. But something's off about this girl. The way she talks about Derek, about the business. She's probably just trying to impress you. No. I stared out my kitchen window at the empty street. She's trying to get rid of me. Gregory sighed. Look, I'll ask around, but will. Sometimes young couples need space. Maybe she's just protective of Derek. Yeah, I said maybe. But I didn't believe it. Not for a second. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd fed Derek breakfast for 18 years. The same table where Raven and I used to plan our future. And I thought about Gabrielle's smile. Her expensive clothes, her casual dismissal of everything I'd built. I thought about Derek, stiff and uncomfortable, letting her speak for him. I should have trusted my instincts right then. Should have dug deeper. Should have seen what was really happening. But I didn't. Not yet. While my son was ashamed of me, there was a young woman who saw me differently. Her name was Claire Foster. And in the end, she would mean more to me than my own blood. Let me tell you about Claire. Her father, Lawrence, worked for me for 8 years. Good man, reliable, the kind of guy who showed up early and stayed late without being asked. He drove routes, trained new hires, never complained. In 2016, Lawrence got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He didn't smoke, just bad luck. The treatments were brutal, expensive. His insurance covered some, but not nearly enough. I found out when he missed 3 days of work. That wasn't like him. I went to his house. He answered the door looking like he'd aged 10 years. Mr. Harper. Sorry, I should have called. What's going on, Lawrence? He told me the diagnosis, the debt piling up. His daughter, Claire, 25 years old, trying to finish design school while working 2 jobs to help with bills. I didn't think twice. Lawrence, you focus on getting better. We'll handle the rest, sir. I can't. You can, and you will. I called my insurance broker that night. got Lawrence's medical bills covered, paid what insurance wouldn't. Lawrence lasted 6 more months. When he died, he left behind Claire and about $30,000 in remaining debt. I paid it, all of it. Then I called Claire, offered her a job at Harper Waste. Administrative work at first. But I also told her if she wanted to finish design school, I'd cover it. Quite? She asked, her voice small and broken. You don't owe us anything. Your father gave me 8 years of loyalty, I said. That means something to me. That was 8 years ago now. Claire Foster was 31 and my best operations manager. I was in my office one afternoon in late March when she knocked. William got a minute always. She came in carrying a laptop and printouts. 8 years and she still dressed practical. Simple clothes, no designer labels, no pretension. I've been running numbers, she said, pulling up spreadsheets. If we optimize routes in the northwest sector and shift 2 trucks to early morning, we could increase efficiency by 12%. Revenue projection $800,000 annually. I studied the numbers. You sure ran it 3 times. The data is solid. You're better at this than I ever was. Claire smiled. I learned from the best, boss. That was the thing about Claire. She never forgot where she came from. Never forgot who gave her a chance when she had nothing. We worked through the projections for 20 minutes. Then she hesitated. Something on your mind? I asked. Derek's wedding. How are you feeling about it? I'd told Claire some of it, not everything. Not about the name change or Gabrielle's condescension, but enough. Honestly, I'm worried about her, Gabrielle. Something doesn't sit right. Claire nodded. Can I be honest, boss? Always. From what you've told me, she sounds like she's using him. The way she talks about his family, the business. It's not love. It's calculation. Maybe I'm just a jealous father. You're not jealous, Claire said firmly. You're protective. There's a difference. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Claire Foster, who'd lost her father at 25, who'd worked 2 jobs while going to school, who'd taken the chance I gave her and turned it into something real. And I thought about Derek, who'd had everything handed to him, who'd never said thank you, who was ashamed of the name that built everything he took for granted. Derek doesn't know how lucky he is, I said quietly. Claire's expression softened. People who grow up with everything sometimes don't see what matters. They think success is about appearances, the right name, the right connections. She paused. But you taught me different. You showed me real success is building something that lasts, something that helps people. Your father would be proud of you. Her eyes got wet. I hope so. I know you are. Yeah, I was. Claire lost her father at 25. I lost my wife at 44 when Derek was 8. Maybe that's why we understood each other. We both knew what it felt like to lose everything and rebuild. We both knew the value of loyalty. Derek never learned that. He'd never lost anything, never had to fight for anything. And now he was throwing it all away for a woman who saw him as a meal ticket. Boss. Claire pulled me back. Whatever happens with Derek and Gabrielle, you know I'm here, right? Whatever you need. I know. Thank you, Claire. 3 weeks after that conversation, mid-April, about 3 months before the wedding, Carol Jennings walked into my office carrying a folder. Carol was my CFO, had been for 19 years. Sharp, thorough, the kind of person who caught details everyone else missed. If Carol looked worried, there was a reason. Her face was pale, serious. William, she said quietly, closing the door behind her. You need to see this. It's about the Westbrooks. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. My instincts had been right. Carol placed the folder on my desk. Inside was everything I needed to know about Gabrielle Westbrook and her family, and everything I'd feared about my son. I'd asked Carol to look into them. Quietly, I told her. What she found would change everything. It was a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks after my conversation with Claire. The office was empty. Just Carol and me, the overhead lights humming in the silence. "And William?" Carol said, sitting across from me. "This is bad. Really bad." She opened the folder. Financial records, FBI documents, printed emails, bank statements. "Where do you want me to start?" she asked. "The beginning." Carol took a breath. Westbrook Environmental Solutions, the company Charles Westbrook runs. It's not what it seems. She pulled out an FBI memo. They've been under investigation for 8 months. Started last August. Charles is facing 15 to 25 years in federal prison. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. For what? Illegal waste brokering, permit fraud, money laundering, hazardous waste trafficking? Carol looked at me. "William, they're not environmental consultants. They're criminals hiding behind a legitimate-looking front." I stared at the document. FBI seal at the top. Charles Westbrook's name highlighted in yellow. "And Gabrielle?" I asked quietly. Carol pulled out credit reports, bank statements, personal debt of $94,000, credit cards maxed out, personal loans. "She's living way beyond her means." She paused. "And this isn't her first wealthy target. I found 2 others in the past 5 years. Both relationships ended when the men figured out what she was doing. Gold digger. Professional one," Carol confirmed. "But it gets worse." She showed me emails, exchanges between Gabrielle and Charles, between Gabrielle and Derek, some I had to read twice to believe. They're planning a merger. Carol said Westbrook Environmental with Harper Waste. The paperwork's already drafted. Once Derrick marries into the family, they'll push for it. Make it seem natural. 2 family businesses coming together. We woot. Carol's expression darkened. Because when the FBI raids Westbrook Environmental, and they will, all the liability will transfer to Harper. The criminal charges, the fines, everything. We'll be the ones holding the bag. I felt like I'd been hit. They're framing us. My worst. They're planning to claim you knew about it. That you were complicit. Charles and Gabriel walk away clean, claiming they were deceived. You and Derek go to prison. Derek? The word came out hollow. Carol hesitated. Then she pulled out another set of emails. Oh, William. Derek knows what? He's part of it. These are from his email account. She slid them across the desk. He's been feeding Gabrielle information about Harper Waste. Routes, permits, client lists, everything she'd need to make the merger look legitimate. I picked up the first email. Derek's name at the top. Sent to Gabrielle 3 weeks ago. Dad will never suspect anything. He trusts me. When we're married, we can move forward with the merger. He'll sign whatever you put in front of him. My hand started shaking. Carol showed me another one. This one from 2 months back. My dad's stubborn, but I know how to handle him. I'm the only man in his life since Mom died. He won't deny me anything. I read that line again and again. I'm the only man in his life since Mom died. He won't deny me anything. Derek wasn't just complicit. He was a co-conspirator, using my love for him as a weapon, using my grief over Raven, using everything I'd given him to destroy me. There's more, Carol said softly. In another email, Derek talks about selling Harper Waste after the merger goes through. 400 million split between him, Gabriel, and Charles. You get nothing, or you're in prison. So it doesn't matter. I sat there. Couldn't move. Couldn't speak. My son, my only child. The boy I raised alone. The boy I gave everything to. He was planning to destroy me. William. Carol's voice seemed far away. What do you want to do? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Carol stood. Take your time. I'll be at my desk if you need me. She left, closing the door quietly behind her. I sat there for 2 hours, staring at those emails, reading them over and over. Dad will never suspect. He trusts me. He'll sign whatever you put in front of him. Part of me wanted to confront Derek immediately. Drive to his fancy condo in Gold Coast. Throw these emails in his face. Demand answers. But I didn't. Because when someone shows you who they really are, believe them and act accordingly. Derek thought I was naive. Thought I was too trusting. Thought I'd sign anything he put in front of me because I loved him. He was wrong. I'd built Harper Waste from nothing. Survived losing my wife, raised a son alone, built a company worth millions. You don't do that by being stupid. You do it by being patient, strategic, by thinking 3 steps ahead. Derek wanted to play games fine, but he was playing with someone who'd been surviving for 71 years, who'd fought for every inch of ground he had. My son thought he knew me, thought he understood what I was capable of. He had no idea. I stood up, gathering the documents, locked them in my desk drawer. Then I picked up the phone and called Gregory Palmer. Greg, I said when he answered, I need to see you tomorrow morning. It's urgent. What's going on? I'll explain in person. But Greg, I looked at Derek's email on my computer screen. Bring everything you know about estate law, trusts, inheritance clauses. There was a pause. Will, what are you planning? I thought about Derek, about Gabriel, about Charles Westbrook and his criminal empire. Insurance, I said. I'm planning insurance. Sitting there with those emails, I realized something. Derek didn't understand what he was throwing away. He didn't understand where the Harper name came from. So, before I tell you what I did next, let me take you back. Let me show you what Derek never wanted to see. I was born in 1953 on the south side of Chicago. Let me tell you about that, because you need to understand what my son was rejecting when he said the name Harper disgusted him. My father, Frank, drove a garbage truck for 40 years. My mother, Ruth, cleaned houses for families in the suburbs. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that smelled like the cabbage she boiled every Sunday. We were poor, but we had something Derek never understood. Self-respect. Frank would come home every night, grease under his fingernails, back aching. He'd wash up, sit at our small kitchen table, and eat dinner with us like a king. Never complained, never apologized for what he did. He taught me that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. I met Raven in 1974. She was a nurse at County General. I was 21, working sanitation like my father. Most women wouldn't have looked twice at me. But Raven saw past the dirty uniform, saw who I was, not what I did. We got married that same year in a small church ceremony. Her dress was borrowed from her sister. My suit was rented. We had 20 people there. No fancy reception, just cake and coffee in the church basement. It was perfect. Derek was born in 1989. I held him in the delivery room, this tiny screaming thing, and made myself a promise. He would have a better life than mine. He'd never know what it felt like to be hungry, never know what it felt like to be looked down on. That promise, I kept it. Maybe too well. Raven died in 1997 in a car accident. Night shift at the hospital. Some drunk driver ran a red light. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. Derek was 8 years old. I was 44. The insurance company sent a check. It was supposed to be for raising Derek, for his future, for everything Raven and I had planned together. Instead, 3 days after the funeral, I was sitting on our couch staring at the wall. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. Derek was at my mother's house. I was alone in that empty apartment, and I had no idea how to keep going. My mother, Ruth, came over, found me there. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to me. Then she grabbed me by the collar and pulled me up. "William," she said, her voice hard, "you've got one choice, sink or swim. And that boy isn't going to pay for your mistakes. Your father drove a truck for 40 years to put food on our table. Raven worked night shifts to save lives. You think they'd want you sitting here feeling sorry for yourself?" I didn't answer. "Get up," she said. "That boy needs his father." So get up. So I got up. I took that insurance money and I bet everything on myself. Started a waste management company. Worked every hour God gave me. Derek would do his homework in my office while I made phone calls. At night, I'd tuck him into a blanket on the couch, then go back to work. It was brutal. There were times I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. Times I wondered if I should have just gotten a regular job, played it safe. But I didn't because I'd made a promise to Raven, to Derek, to myself. Over the years, the company grew. I hired good people, built something that mattered, something that employed families, something that meant something. And through it all, I gave Derek everything. Private school with kids from wealthy families, $60,000 a year. College at a top university, $200,000 total. A condo in Gold Coast when he graduated, $1.35 million. A car, $52,000. Monthly allowance so he wouldn't have to work $2,800. Everything I never had. Everything I dreamed of for him. But somewhere along the way, Derek stopped seeing me as his father. He started seeing me as an embarrassment. When he was 16, he stopped inviting friends over to the house. Said it was too far from where they lived. But I knew he was ashamed of Southside, ashamed of our modest home. When he was 20, he stopped mentioning what I did for a living. Just said, "My dad's in business." Never the name, never the industry. When he was 30, he stopped visiting unless he needed money. And he always needed money. I kept giving it to him, kept hoping he'd see, kept hoping he'd understand that what I'd built, it wasn't just a company. It was proof that you could start with nothing and become something. That you could honor the people who came before you while building something for the people who came after. But Derek never understood that. He looked at me and saw a garbage man, saw someone who embarrassed him, saw a working-class name that held him back. He never saw the man who'd kept a promise to his dead mother, who'd raised him alone, who'd built an empire from grief and determination sitting in that office, with Carol's evidence in front of me. My son's emails, plotting to destroy me. I thought about my mother's words. Sink or swim. I thought about my father, Frank, who drove garbage trucks for 40 years and never apologized for it. I thought about Raven, who would have been heartbroken to see what our son had become. And I knew what I had to do. I picked up the phone and called Gregory Palmer. "Greg," I said when he answered, I need you to come to the office tonight if possible. Tonight? Well, it's almost 9, I know, but this can't wait. I looked at Derek's emails on my screen. I need to change my will, and I need to do it before anyone knows I'm doing it. There was a pause. What's going on? I'll explain when you get here. How fast can you be here? 30 minutes. Good. Bring everything you need for estate planning. Trusts, inheritance clauses, protection clauses. I took a breath. And bring papers for legal adoption. Stop will what? On 30 minutes, Greg. I'll have coffee ready. I hung up and looked out at the Harper waste yard through my office window. Trucks lined up, ready for tomorrow. My father built nothing. He drove someone else's truck his whole life. But he gave me something more valuable than money. He gave me pride, dignity, the knowledge that honest work matters. I'd taken that and built something real. Derek thought he could take that from me, thought he could use my love for him as a weapon. He was wrong because I'd been fighting my whole life, and I wasn't about to stop now. I hung up the phone and looked at the clock. 9:15 at night. Gregory said 30 minutes. I made a fresh pot of coffee, set out 2 mugs, laid Carol's folder on my desk where Gregory would see it the moment he sat down. Then I waited. At 9:40, headlights swept across the parking lot. Gregory Palmer's black sedan pulled up next to my truck. He got out carrying his briefcase, moving fast for a man of 69. Gregory had been my lawyer for 27 years. More than that, he was my friend. Helped me start this business back in '98. Helped me through every legal challenge since. If anyone could help me now, it was him. He came through the door, silver hair slightly mused from the drive. All right, Will, talk to me. I didn't waste time with small talk. Just slid the folder across the desk. Gregory sat down and started reading FBI documents, financial records. The emails, especially the emails. Derek's words in black and white plotting to destroy me. 20 minutes of silence, just the sound of pages turning and Gregory's occasional sharp intake of breath. Finally, he looked up. William, this is prosecutable federal crimes. The FBI will want this evidence. I know. So why am I looking at it instead of federal agents? Because I want something else first. I met his eyes. I want him to learn a lesson, a real one. Consequences he can't run from. Gregory pulled out his legal pad. What are you thinking? My will. I want to change it. And I want to make sure Derek can't touch Harper Waste. Go on. He's changing his name at the wedding. Derek Westbrook Harper. Putting their name first. I paused. If he does that, I want him to lose everything. Gregory wrote notes. A conditional inheritance clause. You have every right to set terms for your estate. Can we make it automatic? No appeals, no way out. We can make it ironclad. He looked up. Walk me through exactly what you want. We spent the next hour drafting. Gregory knew estate law cold. Every word had to be precise. The core was simple but devastating. Any direct descendant who legally changes, replaces, or subordinates the Harper surname shall automatically and irrevocably forfeit all inheritance rights to the estate business and financial assets. That's bulletproof, Gregory said. But what happens to Harper Waste when Derek's out? Sinclair Foster, my operations manager? Gregory raised an eyebrow. You're sure? Her father worked for me 8 years. When he died, I helped Claire through school, gave her a chance. She's been loyal, competent. She understands what this company means. You trust her more than your own son. Wouldn't be hard at this point. Gregory made more notes. Here's what I recommend. 55% of company shares to Claire, 45% to a charitable foundation. Keeps the company stable and does good. The Raven Harper Foundation. I said, for families who've lost someone, medical bills, education, the things insurance doesn't cover. Gregory's expression softened. Raven would have liked that. Yeah, now, if we're giving Claire 55% of a multi-million-dollar company, we need to make it bulletproof. Derek could contest. Claim you weren't in your right mind, that Claire manipulated you. How do we prevent that? That adopt her legally? Adult adoption makes her your daughter with the same legal standing as Derek. No contest possible. Something settled in my chest. Claire Foster Harper. Exactly. Gregory pulled out different forms. I'll draw up the adoption papers tonight. It'll take 2 weeks to process through the courts. But once it's done, she's legally your heir, equal standing with Derek. And if Derek backs out, doesn't change his name, then the clause never triggers. He keeps his inheritance. But Will? Gregory looked at me seriously. Once he changes that name, there's no going back. This will be irrevocable. You'll be cutting off your only son. He cut me off first when he called my name an embarrassment. I'm just making it official. Gregory studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, let's make this airtight. He drafted the language with surgical precision. Called in 2 associates who didn't know me or my family, perfect witnesses. A notary arrived. We signed everything, dated it, sealed it. The will stays sealed until triggered, Gregory explained. Attorney-client privilege? Derek won't know until he changes his name. By then, it'll be too late. Good. Gregory walked me to the door. It was past midnight. When are you telling Claire? Soon before the wedding. She needs to know. And Derek, he'll find out at the wedding in front of everyone. I looked at Gregory. The same place he tried to humiliate me. Gregory shook his head slightly. Remind me never to cross you, William. You've been loyal for 27 years, Greg. You've got nothing to worry about. I drove home through empty Chicago streets. Past midnight now. The city quiet. But my mind was racing. The documents were signed. The trap was set. All Derek had to do was walk into it. And I knew he would, because my son had never faced real consequences in his life. I'd protected him from everything. Made sure he never had to struggle, never had to lose, never had to learn that actions have prices. That was ending now. Derek thought he was playing me. Thought I was naive, trusting easy to manipulate. He was about to learn he was wrong. 2 weeks after signing those documents with Gregory, the adoption papers came through. Processed by the courts, legal, official. All I needed now was Claire's signature and to tell her what I was about to give her. It was a Friday afternoon in my day. The yard was winding down for the weekend. Trucks coming back from routes, drivers clocking out. I found Claire in her office reviewing next week's schedules. Claire, I said from her doorway, can you stay a few minutes after everyone leaves? I need to talk to you. She looked up, and I saw the flash of worry in her eyes. Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong? The efficiency report. You're not in trouble, I said. Just stay, please. Of course. An hour later, the building was empty. Just Claire and me. I asked her to come to my office. She walked in looking nervous, hands clasped in front of her like a kid called to the principal's office. 9 years she'd worked for me. 9 years proving herself every single day. And she still thought I might fire her. Sit down, Claire. She sat perched on the edge of the chair. I'd thought about how to say this for 2 weeks, practiced it in my head. But now, sitting across from her, all those rehearsed words disappeared. I need to ask you something important, I said. Claire nodded, still anxious. I want to legally adopt you, make you my daughter. Claire Foster Harper. She froze, stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. I've already drawn up the papers with my lawyer. They're processed through the courts. All that's left is your signature. I paused. If you want to. Claire's eyes filled with tears. William, I don't deserve this. Don't deserve it, Claire. You've earned this every day for 9 years. But Derek, her voice cracked. He's your son. Your real son. Derek made his choice. He doesn't want the Harper name. You do. I don't understand. Your father, Lawrence, was one of the best men I ever knew. When he got sick, I didn't help him because I was generous. I helped because that's what family does. And when he died, I hired you for the same reason. Claire wiped her eyes. You gave me a chance when no one else would. And you proved yourself 100 times over. I leaned forward. Lawrence would be proud of who you've become. I know I am. She started crying harder. Not sad tears. Something else. If you accept this, if you become my daughter, you'll inherit 55% of Harper Waste Management. Claire's breath caught. William, that's worth about $17 million, give or take. And you'll run this company when I step back. Not because you're my heir, because you're the best person for the job. She put her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I gave her a moment, watched her process it. This young woman who'd lost her father at 25, who'd worked 2 jobs to finish school, who'd taken my chance and turned it into something real. There's one condition, I said quietly. Claire looked up, eyes red. You can't tell Derek, not until after the wedding. Why wait? Because I need him to make his choice without pressure, without knowing what he's giving up. He needs to choose the Westbrooks freely. Claire studied my face. She was smart. She understood there was more to this story. But she didn't push. Okay, she said. I won't tell him. You understand what you're agreeing to? You'll be my daughter legally, permanently. You'll carry the Harper name. I understand. Her voice was stronger now. And I want it. I want to be a Harper. Something loosened in my chest. Something that had been tight since Derek's engagement party 6 months ago. Then we should probably make it official. I pulled out the adoption papers Gregory had prepared, set them on the desk between us. Claire read through them slowly. Her hand shook as she turned the pages. When she reached the signature line, she looked at me. Are you sure? She asked. I've never been more sure of anything, she signed, her handwriting neat and careful. Clell Foster, soon to be Claire Foster Harper. I signed as well, dated it. It was done. Claire stood up, and before I could react, she crossed around the desk and hugged me. A real hug. Tight and desperate and grateful. I hugged her back. This young woman who understood what Derek never had. That the Harper name meant something. That it was worth fighting for. When she pulled back, she was crying again. If we're doing this, I said, you should probably stop calling me boss. Claire laughed through her tears. What should I call you? I thought about Derek, about all the times he'd called me Dad before he started being too embarrassed to introduce me to his friends, before he started wishing I were someone else. If we're doing this, I said quietly, you should call me Dad. Claire's face crumpled. Dad, she whispered. Yeah. My own voice was rough. That's right. She hugged me again. This time I let myself hold on a little longer. I gained a daughter that day, a real one. Someone who understood what the Harper name actually meant. And in 6 weeks at a wedding I was paying for, I'd make sure everyone else understood it too. Derek thought he could throw away our name like it meant nothing. Thought he could use my love as a weapon against me. He was about to learn the cost of that mistake. But tonight, in this quiet office, with my new daughter crying on my shoulder, I let myself feel something other than anger, hope, maybe even peace. Lawrence Foster had given me 8 years of loyalty, and in return, I'd raised his daughter as my own. That was what the Harper name meant. That was what Derek had never understood. Family isn't just blood. It's loyalty. It's showing up. It's being there when it matters. Claire understood that. Derek never had. And soon everyone would know which one of them was truly my child. I'm not a cruel man. So before the wedding, I gave Derek one last chance, one final opportunity to prove I was wrong about him. He failed spectacularly. It had been 2 weeks since Claire signed those adoption papers. 2 weeks of watching her step into her new role, my daughter, my heir. She wore the responsibility well, better than Derek ever had. But part of me still hoped. Hoped it was all Gabrielle's influence. Hoped my son was just weak, not malicious. 1 month before the wedding, I invited Derek to lunch. Wanted to give him one more chance to be honest with me, to back out of whatever he was planning. I chose Pete's Diner, the place where I'd eaten breakfast for 20 years. Where Derek used to sit with me as a kid, coloring on paper napkins while I had coffee. I arrived at noon, ordered coffee, waited. Derek showed up 20 minutes late. "Sorry, Dad," he said, sliding into the booth. No explanation. Just sorry, like it covered everything. He was wearing a suit that probably cost $3,000. Italian, perfectly tailored. He looked at the diner like he was slumming it. Pete came over with menus. "Your boy?" "Yeah." Pete handed Derek a menu. "What can I get you to drink, son?" Derek barely looked at him. "Water's fine." Pete's expression didn't change, but I saw it. The slight tightening around his eyes. He knew disrespect when he saw it. "How are the wedding plans?" I asked. "Good. Expensive." Derek checked his phone. "But Gabrielle wants everything perfect. I'm happy to help with costs." "You are helping. Thanks." Flat like thanking someone for holding a door. We ordered. Derek got a salad, kept checking his phone every few minutes. Then he leaned back. "Actually, Dad, there's something I wanted to talk to you about." "What's that?" "Your retirement?" I took a sip of coffee. "I'm not retiring." "I know, but maybe you should think about it. You're 71. You've worked hard, your whole life. Don't you want to enjoy yourself?" "I enjoy my work." "But Dad," his voice took on a reasoning tone like talking to a stubborn child. "You can't do this forever. Your body can't take it." "My body's fine, I'm just saying. Wouldn't it be nice to travel?" "Relax. Let someone else handle the stress. Someone like you." "Well, yeah. I'm your son." He leaned forward. "I could restructure things, new partnerships. Gabrielle's family could really help us grow. They've got connections in environmental consulting. Real expertise, Dad. We could take Harper Waste to a whole new level." There it was. Gabrielle's family, the Westbrooks, the criminals. What kind of connections? People who understand the industry. Gabrielle's father has worked with major corporations. He could introduce us to clients we'd never reach otherwise. His phone rang. Gabrielle's name. "Sorry, I have to take this." He walked outside. I watched through the window. Derek pacing, gesturing, animated. Pete refilled my coffee. "That your boy?" "Yeah. Seems busy." Pete didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Derek came back 5 minutes later. "Sorry, wedding stuff." Derek, I said, what happens to the Harper name? He blinked. What do you mean? The company's called Harper Waste Management. Would you keep that? Derek hesitated. Just a second. But I saw it. Maybe rebrand, he said carefully. Something more modern, but we can discuss that later. My coffee tasted like ash. We could really modernize the whole operation. Derek continued. New systems, digital marketing. Gabrielle's father knows people who could help. Make us competitive with the big national chains. And you'd run it personally. Well, with guidance from Gabrielle's family. They've built successful companies. They've built criminal enterprises, I thought. And you're planning to hand them my company on a silver platter. The check came. Derek didn't reach for it. I paid. Outside, Derek gave me a quick hug. Prefunctor. Think about it, Dad, he said. You've earned a rest. I'll think about it. He smiled. I knew you'd understand. Love you, Dad. He walked to his car and drove away. I stood there in the parking lot watching him go. Pete came out wiping his hands on his apron. You okay, Will? Yeah. That boy of yours? Pete shook his head. He don't see you, does he? No, Anid. I said he doesn't. I got in my truck and sat there for a while. Hands on the steering wheel, engine off. Derek wasn't being manipulated. He wasn't innocent. He knew exactly what Gabrielle's family was, knew they were criminals, and he was planning to hand them my company anyway. Part of me had hoped I was wrong. Hoped Derek was just weak, just stupid, just blinded by love. But no, he knew. He was fully complicit. That lunch killed the last bit of doubt in my heart. In 4 weeks at his wedding, the wedding I was paying for, Derek would learn what happens when you try to take down William Harper. And the lesson wouldn't come cheap. 4 weeks had passed since that lunch at Pete's Diner. 4 weeks of watching the final preparations. 4 weeks of listening to Gabriel's demands for upgrades, additions, must-haves. I paid for all of it, every flower, every chair, every bite of food. And tonight, it would all be worth it. The wedding was on a Saturday in early July. Hottest day of the summer, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer off the pavement. I arrived at the hotel at 4 o'clock. Downtown Chicago, crystal chandeliers in the ballroom, 200 guests, valet parking, red carpet at the entrance. I wore my best suit, new one actually, bought specifically for today. Still felt out of place walking through those marble halls. Celeste Beaumont, the wedding planner, was coordinating everything. Clipboard in hand, earpiece connected, barking orders at staff. My Mr. Harper, she said when she saw me. You're at table. Let me check. Table 14. Not the head table. Her smile was professional, practiced. Oh, that's reserved for the bride's immediate family and the couple's closest circle. I see. Table 14 was in the back corner behind a decorative pillar. The kind of placement that said everything you needed to know about where I ranked in Derek's world. My table mates were distant relatives Derek barely knew, and a couple of his high school friends he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. Claire arrived 20 minutes later, found me at table 14 and sat down next to me. Oh, Dad, she said quietly. The words still sounded new. This isn't right. It's fine. Let them enjoy their moment until when I checked my watch. Soon the ceremony started at 5:30. The ballroom had been transformed. White flowers everywhere, candles, a live string quartet playing classical music. Derek stood at the altar in a custom tuxedo. Probably cost $5,000. Gabrielle walked down the aisle in a dress that cost $15,000. I knew because I'd seen the invoice. They exchanged vows, rings, kissed. 200 people applauded. I watched it all with a face like stone. Claire squeezed my hand once. The reception started at 6:30. French cuisine, 3 courses, wine pairings. I barely touched my food, just watched. The head table was on a raised platform at the front of the room. Derek and Gabrielle in the center, Charles Westbrook to Gabrielle's right, her mother to Derek's left, bridesmaids and groomsmen filling out the rest. There was an empty chair, the one that should have been for the father of the groom. At 7:30, the speeches began. Charles stood first, tapped his champagne glass. The room fell silent. Today, we welcome Derek into the Westbrook family, Charles said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. A family built on tradition, on values, on legacy. We are honored that he has chosen to carry our name forward. Applause, smiles, nods of approval. Gabrielle went next. I want to thank my amazing family for everything. The Westbrooks have given me such a strong foundation, and I'm so grateful that Derek wants to be part of that. More applause. Then Derek took the microphone. I have an announcement I'm really excited to share. The room leaned forward. As of this morning, I officially and legally changed my name. Derek smiled wide, proud. I am now officially Derek Westbrook Harper. The AV tech brought up an image on the screen behind him. A legal name change certificate, official stamps, signatures. Derek Westbrook Harper. Westbrook first, Harper second. This is my tribute to Gabriel's family, Derek continued, who have welcomed me with open arms. The Westbrook name represents everything I aspire to be, and I'm honored to officially become part of this legacy. The room erupted in applause. 200 people clapping, smiling. Someone near the front called out, "That's so beautiful." Gabrielle kissed Derek. Charles stood and shook his hand. The photographer's camera flashed. I sat at table 14 behind the pillar watching my son celebrate changing his name. Harper second. An afterthought. A footnote. Claire looked at me. Dad. I stood up. The applause was still going. People were standing now, raising glasses in toast. Derek was beaming arm around Gabrielle, basking in the attention. I started walking toward the front of the ballroom. The first person to notice was one of Derek's high school friends at my table. He nudged the person next to him. Then someone else saw. Then another. Conversations died, heads turned. The applause faltered, then stopped. Derek saw me coming. His face went white. But what will he started to say? Gabrielle grabbed his arm. What's he doing? Charles stood up from the head table, his expression darkening. I kept walking, steady, calm, like I had all the time in the world. The live band had finished their set. The AV system was still on microphone on its stand near the front screen, still displaying Derek's name change certificate. The ballroom was silent now. 200 people watching, waiting. I reached the front, picked up the microphone. Before I take you into what happened next, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever faced a moment where someone close to you crossed a line you never expected? If so, share your experience in the comments. I read everyone, and just to be clear, the next part of this story includes some fictionalized details meant for reflection and learning. If you prefer not to continue, you're welcome to stop here. Turn to face the crowd. Derek was frozen at the head table. Gabrielle's fingernails were digging into his arm. Charles looked like he was calculating whether he could stop me. Too late. I looked at my son, at the woman he'd married, at the family he'd chosen over his own, and I smiled. Good evening, everyone. I said, I'm William Harper, father of the groom. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my son's wedding. The wedding I paid for. Uncomfortable silence, a few nervous laughs. Now Derek just made a very important announcement about his name. And I think it's only fair that I make an announcement too. Derek's face wasn't just white anymore. It was gray. Death. He started. I held up one hand. He fell silent. You see, I continued, there are some things about the Westbrook family that I think everyone should know. I paused. Let it sink in. Westbrook Environmental Solutions is currently under FBI investigation for environmental crimes. Gasps, whispers, heads turning. Charles shot to his feet. This is outrageous. Sit down, Charles. Something in my voice made him freeze. He sat. Charles Westbrook is facing federal charges: illegal waste dumping, permit fraud, money laundering, racketeering. The FBI has been investigating for 8 months. Charles is looking at 15 to 25 years in federal prison. The room erupted, voices overlapping. Charles trying to push toward the exit, but guests were blocking the aisles now, phones out recording. And Gabrielle, I looked at my son's bride. She's $94,000 in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, all maxed out. That Mercedes she drove here, 3 payments behind. That dress financed over 18 months. Gabrielle screamed, "You have no right." They had a plan, I said over her. Marry my son, merge their failing company with mine, and when the FBI came, they'd pin their crimes on me, on us, on Harper. I gestured to the AV tech I'd also paid earlier. He connected my laptop to the screen. Derek's emails filled the display behind me. Dad will never suspect anything. He trusts me. He'll sign whatever you put in front of him. The room exploded. Oh my God, are you seeing this? Is someone recording phones everywhere pointed at me at the screen at Derek's white face? See, and that name change my son just announced. I looked at Derek. He was frozen at the head table, Gabriel's nails digging into his arm. I want you all to know something. 6 months ago, I changed my will. The room went quiet again. Any descendant who changes or subordinates the Harper name automatically forfeits all inheritance. Irrevocable, non-negotiable. Derek's face wasn't just white anymore. It was gray. Derek just triggered that clause. He gets nothing. Dad, Derek started. I held up one hand. Claire, come here, sweetheart. Claire stood from table 14, walked to the front. Every eye in the room followed her. I put my arm around her shoulders. This is Claire Foster Harper, my legally adopted daughter. She will inherit 55% of Harper Waste Management. Claire stood beside me head high. She earned the Harper name. She didn't run from it. The remaining 45% goes to the Raven Harper Foundation, a charity named for my late wife, Derek's mother. The woman who would be heartbroken to see what her son became. I looked at Derek. Really looked at him. Derek, you said Harper was a working-class name. You were right. It is, and you were never man enough to carry it. Derek lunged forward. Hotel security. The 2 guys I'd paid $1,000 each that morning intercepted him, held him back. That you can't do this. Gabrielle turned on him, screaming. You said he'd never find out. You promised. Shut up, Gabrielle. Don't tell me to shut up. This is your fault. You said Charles was trying to leave. Guests blocked him, phones recording everything. Someone was live streaming. The chaos was beautiful. I handed the microphone back to the DJ. Thank you. I took Claire's hand. Let's go, sweetheart. We're done here. We walked through the crowd. They parted. Some faces showed shock. Some showed disgust, but not at me. At Derek, at the Westbrooks, one woman, Someone from Gabrielle's side said loud enough to hear. I knew that family was trash. Behind us, Derek was shouting, "Dad, Dad, you can't do this to me!" I didn't look back. Gabrielle and Charles were screaming at each other now. Guests were talking over each other. Phones out, recording, posting in real time. Claire walked beside me, her hand tight in mine. We reached the ballroom doors, stepped into the hotel corridor. The sounds of chaos faded behind us. The night air was cool when we stepped outside. Downtown Chicago, city lights, traffic sounds. Claire looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Are you?" I thought about Derek in there. His perfect wedding destroyed. His perfect plan exposed. His perfect new name worthless about Raven. About what she'd want me to do. "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay." We walked to my truck, the old one. 20 years old, dented rust spots. Claire laughed when she saw it. "Really, Dad? You just publicly humiliated the Westbrooks and you're driving away in this Seikei." "This truck is paid for," I said. "And it's mine. Just like the Harper name." I started the engine. It coughed once, then roared to life. As we pulled away, I could see people streaming out of the hotel. Phones still out, still recording, still posting. By tomorrow morning, this would be everywhere. Derek Westbrook Harper's wedding disaster. The groom who tried to destroy his father and got destroyed instead. Where are we going?" Claire asked. "Pete's Diner," I said. "I'm hungry and I need coffee." Claire smiled. "Best idea I've heard all night." I drove through Chicago, past the fancy hotels, past the expensive restaurants, back to Southside, back home. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to 38 missed calls, all from Derek. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast alone for 27 years, and watched my phone light up again. Derek, then Gabriel, then a number I didn't recognize. I powered it off and made coffee. The video had gone viral. Someone at the wedding, probably multiple someones, had posted clips to social media. By Sunday morning, it was everywhere. "Father exposes son's betrayal at wedding reception," read one headline. "A Chicago businessman's shocking speech goes viral," said another. 2 million views in 48 hours. The comment section was a mix of praise and pity. "This man is a legend. I feel so bad for him. Best wedding speech ever." My face was all over the local news. I didn't feel like a legend. I felt empty. By Monday morning, the consequences had already started. Derek called me 63 times that day. I know because I checked the blocked call log. The text messages escalated throughout the morning. "Dad, please. Then we need to talk. By afternoon, you're ruining my life. By evening, I'll sue you for this." I blocked his number permanently. Gabriel called next. I blocked her too. Then came the professional fallout. Charles Westbrook fired Derek from Westbrook Properties that same Monday. According to Carol, who had sources everywhere, Charles didn't even call Derek into the office, just had HR email him a termination notice. Effective immediately due to reputational damage to the firm. Derek tried other companies, real estate firms, property management groups, commercial developers. No one would touch him. The video was too public. His name, Derek Westbrook Harper, was now permanently associated with fraud, betrayal, and environmental crimes. By Tuesday, Gabrielle's lawyer contacted Derek with divorce papers. The grounds fraud and misrepresentation. Gabrielle claimed Derek had promised her he would inherit millions, that he'd lied about his family's wealth, that the marriage was based on false pretenses. She kept the $1.35 million condo. The deed had been transferred to her name a week before the wedding. A smart move on her part. Derek moved into an extended stay America. $100 a night. No kitchen, no future. Friday afternoon, Derek showed up at Harper Waste Management. Ray Thompson stopped him at the gate. "Sorry, Derek," Ray said. His voice was firm, but not unkind. "Boss said no visitors." "Now, Ray, come on," Derek said. His voice cracked. "I just need 5 minutes with my dad. I can't do it," Ray replied. "Orders are orders." I watched from my office window as Derek stood in the parking lot, keys dangling from his hand shoulders, shaking. He wasn't crying. Not yet. But he would be soon. I turned away from the window. Claire handled the media inquiries with precision. When Harper Waste Management has no comment at this time, every reporter who called got the same response. Every email got the same auto-reply. Claire didn't flinch, didn't waver. She understood what I'd built here: loyalty, reputation, work. The employees talked, of course, but they stayed loyal. They knew Derek had tried to destroy what we'd spent 27 years building. That week, I met with Gregory Palmer. "The wheel's airtight," Gregory said. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded across his chest. Derek filed a contestation through his lawyer, but it won't go anywhere. The name change clause was crystal clear. He triggered it. He loses everything. "Good," I said. Gregory studied me for a moment. "How do you feel?" "Empty," I admitted. "Not like I won, just empty." "That's grief," Gregory said quietly. "You buried your son this week. Not literally, but you did." I didn't argue with him. The Westbrooks went silent. Charles stopped posting on social media. Gabrielle disappeared from public view. Westbrook Environmental's downtown office went dark. Blinds drawn, phones disconnected. Neighbors reported seeing Charles making late-night phone calls in his driveway, pacing under the streetlights like a man planning something desperate. I wondered what they were planning, but I didn't worry. Not yet. 1 week after the wedding, I sat alone in my living room and watched the viral video for the first time. There I was, 72 years old, standing at that DJ booth with a microphone in my hand, exposing my son in front of 200 people. The comments called me a hero. They called it justice. They said I'd done the right thing. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who'd survived. Not one just survived. Then on Sunday, exactly 1 week after the wedding, 3 people showed up at my door. I looked through the window first. Derek, Gabrielle, Charles, all 3 of them standing on my porch, like they had a right to be there. Across the street, I saw Mrs. Morgan's curtains twitch. South Side Chicago. Everyone knows everyone else's business. I debated not opening the door. Let them stand there. Let the neighbors watch, but I wanted to hear what they had to say. I opened the door and stood in the doorway. Didn't invite them in. Didn't step aside. "William," Charles said. His voice was smooth, controlled. "We need to talk." "No, I said we don't." Derek stepped forward. "Dad, please, just 5 minutes." He looked terrible, unshaved, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "Good. Dad, Gabriel's divorcing me. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to go." "Sounds like that's your problem," I said. "I'm your son." "Are you?" I crossed my arms. "Because last I checked, you're Derek Westbrook Harper now. The Harper part's just for decoration, right?" Derek flinched. Gabrielle stepped forward next. She was still dressed in designer clothes. A cream-colored blouse, tailored pants, expensive heels. But the warmth was gone. Her smile was sharp, calculated. Mr. Harper, she said, we made mistakes. I made mistakes. But we can fix this together. Fix it. I kept my voice level. You people planned to frame me for federal crimes. And that was my father's idea, Gabrielle said quickly. I didn't know. You're lying, I said. I have the emails. Your emails. Her smile disappeared. Charles took a step forward. His voice shifted calm, businesslike, like we were negotiating a contract. William, let's be adults about this. I'm listening. We can still make this work, Charles said. Merge the companies. You take 60% control. We clean up our act. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. I almost laughed. You were going to send me to prison. That was worst-case scenario planning, Charles said smoothly. We would never have, actually. I don't do business with criminals. Charles's jaw tightened. The mask slipped just for a second. Then he smiled again. Think carefully, William. You're making enemies you don't want. Is that a threat? It's reality, Charles said. The business world is small. You'll regret this. Derek grabbed my arm. Dad, if you don't help me, Gabrielle's going to leave. Her family's going to destroy me. I'll have nothing. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. You already have nothing, I said quietly. You threw it away. I made a mistake. No. I pulled my arm free. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. What you did was plan to betray me for months. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Derrick's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised. The kid who'd run to me when he fell off his bike. The teenager who'd asked me how to tie a tie before his first dance. Then I remembered the emails. Dad will never suspect. He trusts me. The boy I'd raised was gone. This man standing on my porch was a stranger. Charles stepped forward one last time. You're making a mistake, William. I tried to be reasonable. I tried to offer you a way out, but if you refuse, he paused. Well, let's just say you'll wish you'd taken the deal. Get off my property, I said. Dad, Derrick started. I stepped back and closed the door, locked it, stood there with my hand on the doorknob listening. Muffled voices outside, Derrick shouting, Gabrielle shouting back. Then footsteps down the porch stairs. I looked through the window. Derrick, Gabrielle, and Charles stood on the sidewalk arguing. Derrick was gesturing wildly. Gabrielle was on her phone already planning her next move. Charles had his phone to his ear, his free hand, cutting through the air in sharp, angry gestures. Whoever he was talking to wasn't getting good news. They climbed into Charles's black Mercedes and drove away. Across the street, my neighbor Pete, not Pete Kowalski from the diner. A different Pete lived 3 houses down, walked over. You okay, Will? Yeah, I said I'm okay. But I wasn't sure that was true. I called Gregory Palmer the moment I got inside. They just left. I said Charles made threats. What kind of threats? 2 said I was making enemies, that I'd regret this. Then he made a phone call outside. Looked angry as hell. Gregory was quiet for a moment. William, be careful. Charles Westbrook knows some very bad people. You think he'd actually do something now? I think desperate men do reckless things. Gregory said, watch your back. I hung up and sat in my living room. The same room where I'd sat with Raven 27 years ago, planning Derrick's future. The same room where I'd told Derrick I was proud of him when he graduated college. The same room where I'd realized my son was a stranger. Outside, the Mercedes taillights disappeared around the corner. Charles on his phone gesturing angrily. Dererick in the back seat, head in his hands. Gabrielle staring at her phone, already planning the next move. I should have called the police right then. Should have told Gregory to hire security. But I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. 2 weeks after I refused their offer, the EPA showed up at my yard. That's when I knew the Westbrooks had made their move. Charles had dangerous connections. I should have remembered that. It started on a Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. I was at the Harper Wastard, checking the morning routes with the dispatch crew, coffee in hand, clipboard under my arm. The same routine I'd followed for 27 years. Then 3 black SUVs pulled into the lot. Federal agents climbed out. Serious faces, dark suits, badges. A woman in her early 40s led the team. Short brown hair, sharp eyes. Professional. Mr. Harper. She held up her badge. I'm Special Agent Lisa Whitmore, EPA, Criminal Investigation Division. We have a warrant to search these premises. I set down my coffee. A warrant for what? Illegal hazardous waste disposal. That's impossible, I said. We follow every regulation. Agent Whitmore's expression didn't change. That's what we're here to determine. They spent 6 hours searching every truck, every storage area, every filing cabinet, the dispatch office, the maintenance bay, even the break room. And they found exactly what they were looking for. 55-gallon drums of industrial chemicals hidden in the back storage area behind a stack of old tires, medical waste, industrial solvents, labels from hospitals, manufacturing plants, chemical facilities. I've never seen these before, I said. Everyone says that, Mr. Harper. Then came the paperwork, disposal certificates with my forged signature, documents showing cash payments to Harper Waste for illegal dumping, bank records, fake ones, linking me to offshore accounts. It was professional, detailed, convincing. We received an anonymous tip 2 weeks ago. Agent Whitmore said, very detailed information about your operations. 2 weeks right after I'd turned down the Westbrooks. This is a setup, I said. Someone planted this. We'll investigate thoroughly, Agent Whitmore replied. But right now the evidence is here. The investigation deepened over the next 3 weeks. More EPA inspections, more interviews. Every employee at Harper Waste was questioned. They all said the same thing. William Harper ran a clean operation. By the book, always. But the evidence kept building. Forensic analysis showed chemicals had been dumped at multiple sites around Chicago. Every trail led back to Harper Waste trucks. Row logs, forged ones, placed our vehicles at every dump site. Then, in week 4, Eddie Morrison came forward. Eddie had worked for me 3 years ago. I'd fired him for stealing. Caught him taking tools from the shop, selling them online. He'd threatened to sue, called me every name in the book, then disappeared. Now he was back with a story. The EPA showed me the video deposition. Eddie sat across from a federal prosecutor looking smug and righteous. Mr. Harper ordered me to dump chemicals after hours, Eddie said. Told me no one would know. Said it saved the company money. How many times? The prosecutor asked. Dozens, maybe hundreds over 3 years. I watched the video in Gregory's office. My hands shook with rage. What? That's a lie, I said. I fired him for theft. But Eddie had disposal logs, fabricated ones with dates, locations, chemical types. He had photos, staged ones, showing Harper waste trucks at illegal dump sites. And he had $50,000 in his bank account deposited 2 weeks ago. Source an offshore account registered to a shell company. We can trace it, Carol told me later. But it's buried deep, week 5, early morning. Federal agents at my door. William Harper, you're under arrest for violations of the Clean Water Act, illegal hazardous waste disposal, and conspiracy to commit environmental crimes. They handcuffed me in front of my neighbors. Mrs. Morgan watched from across the street, hand over her mouth. Pete stood on his porch, frozen. Miranda writes, processing at the federal building. Fingerprints, mugs shot, the whole humiliating ritual. Gregory arrived within the hour. William, don't say anything. The bail hearing was at federal court downtown. The prosecutor stood. Mr. Harper is a flight risk, given the severity of the charges, Gregory countered. My client has lived in Chicago for 72 years. He's a respected businessman. He's not going anywhere. The judge looked down at the paperwork. Bail is set at $500,000. Gregory posted it used his own property as collateral. I was released with an ankle monitor and travel restrictions. $500,000 for crimes I didn't commit. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Mr. Harper, did you order illegal dumping? Mr. Harper, how do you respond to the charges? Mr. Harper? Gregory pulled me past them, but the damage was done. By evening, my mugshot was on every news channel. Chicago waste mogul arrested for environmental crimes. Harper Waste Management faces shut down. My name, the name I'd protected, dragged through the mud. The business hemorrhaged. Major clients suspended contracts pending investigation. Employees quit. Scared their names would be associated with a criminal enterprise. Revenue dropped 40% in 2 weeks. Claire and Carol held the company together, barely. Boss, Carol said one afternoon in my office. Eddie Morrison received $50,000 2 weeks ago. Source an offshore account registered to a shell company. Can we trace it? We're trying, but it's buried. I met with Gregory at his office. We can prove this is a setup, he said. But it'll take time, weeks, maybe months. The evidence is sophisticated. Whoever did this knows what they're doing. It's Charles, I said. Has to be. Probably. Gregory agreed. But proving it is another matter. How much time do I have? Autumn trial set for 3 months out. We'll fight. But William, he paused. If we lose, you're looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison and a $5 million fine. 3 to 5 years for crimes I didn't commit. That night, I sat in my living room and watched the evening news. My face on TV labeled environmental criminal. The name I'd built, the name I'd protected, destroyed by the very people who were actually criminals. And the worst part, people believed it. I could see it in my neighbor's eyes, the doubt, the judgment. I'd thought that was rock bottom, the lowest point. But I was wrong, because the Westbrooks weren't done with me. Not even close. And what happened 3 days later would show me just how far they were willing to go. Week 7 after the wedding. I'd spent the afternoon reviewing defense documents, depositions, forensic reports, witness statements, building our case, proving the EPA charges were a setup. Gregory walked me to the door. Be careful, William. The Westbrooks are desperate. Desperate men do dangerous things. I'm always careful, but I wasn't careful enough. It was late afternoon when I left downtown. Rush hour traffic. Stop and go. My ankle monitor felt heavy, a constant reminder that I was a criminal in the eyes of the law. I merged onto the expressway, heading south back to Harper Waste, back to salvage what was left of my business. That's when I realized something was wrong. The car in front of me braked suddenly. I pressed my foot down. Nothing. I pressed harder. The pedal went straight to the floor. No resistance, no slowing. The car ahead was getting closer, fast. I yanked the wheel right, swerved into the next lane. Horns blared. A semi-truck missed me by inches. My heart hammered. I pumped the brakes again. Nothing. The emergency brake. I pulled it. It slowed me slightly, but not enough. Not at 60 miles per hour in Chicago traffic. Ahead. The road curved, a concrete barrier on the right. Cars everywhere. I had two choices. Plow into the cars ahead or aim for the barrier. I chose the barrier. Everything slowed down. The steering wheel, the concrete wall rushing toward me, the screech of tires, the smell of burning rubber. I thought about Raven, her smile, the way she used to hold my hand. I thought about Derek, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd betrayed me. I thought about Claire, the daughter I'd chosen, the legacy I'd built. Then impact. The sound was deafening. Metal crumpling, glass shattering. My body thrown forward against the seatbelt. My head snapped sideways. The truck flipped once, twice. The world spun sky ground. Then stillness. I tasted copper blood. My ribs screamed, my left arm wouldn't move. Something warm ran down my face. Voices distant, someone shouting, sirens. Then darkness. I woke up in a hospital room. Fluorescent lights, beeping machines, the chemical smell of disinfectant. Claire sat beside my bed, her face pale eyes red from crying. Carol stood by the window. Gregory paced near the door. "Dad," Claire said. Her voice cracked. "You're awake." I tried to speak. My throat felt like sandpaper. "What happened?" "You crashed," Gregory said, "on the expressway. You've been unconscious for 6 hours." A doctor entered, middle-aged, tired eyes, white coat. "Mr. Harper, I'm Dr. Alan Roberts. You're very lucky. 3 broken ribs, a concussion, lacerations on your left arm and forehead. But you'll recover, Lucky." I didn't feel lucky. The truck I asked to Carol said quietly. An hour later, a woman in a dark suit entered the room, badge clipped to her belt. "Well, Mr. Harper, I'm Inspector Angela Price, Chicago PD. I need to ask you some questions about your accident." "It wasn't an accident," I said. My voice was stronger now, clearer. The brakes failed. Inspector Price nodded. "We know. We examined the wreckage. Your brake line was cut deliberately. Clean cut right above the master cylinder. Someone wanted you dead, Mr. Harper." The room went silent. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Carol gripped the window frame. Gregory stopped pacing, took attempted murder. Inspector Price continued. "We're treating this as an active investigation. I need to know who would want to kill you." I closed my eyes, saw Charles Westbrook on my porch, heard his voice. "You're making enemies you don't want." "The Westbrooks," I said. Inspector Price pulled out a notepad. "Tell me everything." I talked for 20 minutes. The EPA setup, Eddie Morrison, the offshore payments, the threats, the phone call Charles made outside my house. Inspector Price wrote it all down. "We'll investigate. But Mr. Harper, until we can make arrests, you're in danger. I'm recommending 247 police protection. I don't need—" "You almost died today," she interrupted. "Next time, you might not be so lucky." Next time, the words hung in the air. That night, Claire and Carol left. Gregory stayed reading case files in the corner chair. My phone rang, a number I'd blocked weeks ago. Derek, I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Dad." His voice was shaking raw. "I heard about the accident. Are you okay? I'm alive. Dad, He choked. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For the first time in months, I heard real emotion in my son's voice. Not calculation, not manipulation, just pain. Sorry for what? I asked quietly. For everything. For Gabriel. For the name change. For betraying you. His voice broke. For almost getting you killed. You didn't cut my brake line, Derek. But I started this, he said. If I just listened to you, Derek. They tried to kill you, Dad, because of me. Because I brought those people into our lives. Silence stretched between us. The machines beeped. Gregory looked up from his files. I don't know how to fix this, Derek said. His voice was barely a whisper. But I want to try if you'll let me. I thought about everything he'd done. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd chosen Gabriel and Charles over me. But I also thought about the boy I'd raised. The son who'd once called me his hero. The child Raven and I had loved. Maybe that boy wasn't completely gone. We'll see, I said. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. After I hung up, Gregory spoke. That sounded like progress. Maybe, I said. Or maybe it's just guilt talking. Does it matter? I didn't answer because I didn't know. Inspector Price returned the next morning. We're opening a full investigation into the Westbrooks, she said. Charles Gabriel, their business associates. We're getting warrants for their financial records, phone records, everything. How long will that take? Weeks? Maybe months? She paused. But, Mr. Harper, I need you to understand something. If the Westbrooks tried to kill you once, they'll try again. You need protection. I looked at Claire standing by the window. Carol, arms crossed, worried. Gregory holding a legal pad covered in notes. These people, my chosen family, had stood by me, even when my blood family had betrayed me. Okay, I said. I'll take the protection. Inspector Price left. Claire squeezed my hand. We're going to get through this, Dad. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it because the Westbrooks had escalated from legal threats to attempted murder. And if they were willing to cut my brake line, what else were they willing to do? And Derek's phone call. It had changed something. For the first time since the engagement party, I'd heard my son's real voice, his real pain. Maybe he wasn't completely lost, but could I trust him after everything? Derek showed up at the hospital 3 hours later. I was still awake. Couldn't sleep with the pain in my ribs and the monitor beeping every few seconds. Claire sat in the chair beside my bed reading case files Gregory had left. A knock at the door. Claire looked up. Her expression hardened. I'll handle it. She opened the door halfway. I heard Derek's voice. Claire, please, I need to see him. He almost died today, Claire said coldly, because of people you brought into his life. I know. Derek's voice cracked. Please, just 5 minutes. Claire looked back at me. I nodded. She stepped aside. Derek entered. He looked terrible. Worse than at the wedding. Worse than when he'd shown up on my porch. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands shook. He'd lost weight. His shirt hung loose on his frame. Dad. He stopped at the foot of my bed. I'm so sorry. You already said that, I replied. My voice was flat on the phone. I know, but I needed to say it to your face. He swallowed hard. They tried to kill you because of me. Claire crossed her arms. You should leave. No. I kept my eyes on Derek. Let him talk. Derek pulled a chair closer, sat down heavily. His hands gripped the armrests like he needed something to hold on to. I need to tell you everything, he said from the beginning. I'm listening. You, Gabrielle, She started it all 6 months before the engagement. She researched you, Harper Waste, your finances, everything. His voice shook. She told me her father's company was in trouble, that they needed a way out. And I was stupid enough to believe that marrying into wealth would make me important. You were important, I said quietly. You were my son. Derek flinched. I know that now. Keep talking. After the engagement, Charles approached me, said we could merge the companies, that I'd be CEO, that we'd be partners. Derek's hands trembled. But then the FBI investigation started, and everything changed. They needed a scapegoat, Claire said. Yes. Derek looked at her. Charles said the only way out was to frame someone else. Someone with a clean record who wouldn't suspect me. I said, you. Derek's voice broke, and I went along with it. I gave them road information, client lists, everything they needed to make it look real. The machines beeped. My ribs ached, but I stayed silent waiting. But after the wedding, after you exposed everything, Charles and Gabriel turned on me. They said if I didn't help them finish what we started, they'd kill me. They'd kill you. They'd burn down Harper Waste with everyone inside. And you believe them? Claire asked. Yes. Derek looked at his hands because I saw what they did to the EPA investigator who started looking too closely. He disappeared. Just gone. The room went cold. I asked on 2 months ago. Special Agent Marcus Collins. He was heading the Westbrook investigation. Then he vanished. Charles bragged about it. Claire grabbed her phone. I'm calling Inspector Price. Wait, Derek said. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone. I have proof. He set the phone on my hospital tray, tapped the screen. I've been recording them, Derek said, for 3 weeks, ever since they threatened me. He pressed play. Charles Westbrook's voice filled the room. Clear, unmistakable. And the Harper frame-up is perfect. EPA's bought the evidence. Eddie Morrison's testimony sealed it. William Harper will be in prison by fall. Gabriel's voice next. And if he fights back, then we handle it the same way we handled Agent Collins. Brake lines, gas leaks, accidents happen. My blood ran cold. Derek pressed stop. There's more. Hours more. Charles detailing the EPA setup, the payments to Eddie Morrison, the forged documents, everything. Claire stared at the phone. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Because I was terrified, Derek said. His voice cracked. They said they'd kill me. Kill Dad. I didn't know what to do. So, you waited until someone cut my bra line? I asked. Yes. Tears ran down Derek's face. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'm here now, and I'm ready to make this right. 20 minutes later, Gregory arrived. Claire had called him immediately after hearing the recordings. He listened to every word, pen and legal pad filling with notes. When it finished, Gregory looked up. This is admissible, he said. IL is a one-party consent state for recordings. Derek can legally record conversations he's part of. But can we use this? I asked. Absolutely. Gregory's expression was grim. This proves conspiracy, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, and potentially homicide if we can find Agent Collins' body. Derek spoke. I'll testify against Charles, against Gabriel, against everyone. Gregory studied him, studied. You understand? You'll face charges too. Conspiracy, aiding and abetting. I know, Derek interrupted. I'll take whatever I deserve. I just want to make this right. Gregory nodded slowly. I'll contact the U.S. Attorney's Office first thing tomorrow. We'll negotiate a cooperation agreement." "What does that mean?" Derek asked. "It means you'll testify against the Westbrooks. In exchange, the prosecutors will recommend reduced charges for you." Gregory paused. "But you'll still face prison time, Derek. Probably 2 to 3 years." Derek looked at me. "Is that okay, Dad?" I thought about Raven, what she would want. She'd always believed in second chances, in redemption. "You've got a long road ahead, son," I said quietly. "But if you're willing to walk it, then yes, it's okay." Derek's face crumpled. He stood moved toward my bed, then stopped, unsure if he was allowed. I held out my hand. He took it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry, but we held on. For the first time in months, I saw my son. Not Derek Westbrook Harper, not the man Gabriel had molded, but Derek, my boy. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered. "I don't thank me yet," I said. "This is just the beginning." Gregory left to draft immunity agreements. Claire went to call Inspector Price with the news about Agent Collins. Derek stayed sitting quietly in the chair, the weight of everything pressing down on him. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you tell the prosecutors everything I said. Every detail, every name, every crime. And then we take down the Westbrooks." Derek nodded. Together, I hesitated. Then together, the prosecutors called the next morning. They wanted Derek as a witness, wanted the recordings, wanted everything, and Derek gave it to them because the Westbrooks had made a fatal mistake. They'd pushed my son too far, and now he was coming for them. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Federal courtroom in downtown Chicago. Judge Robert Brennan, presiding assistant U.S.M. S. Attorney Rachel Torres led the prosecution's sharp mid-40s with a reputation for dismantling white-collar criminals. Charles and Gabrielle Westbrook sat at the defense table with their lawyers. Expensive suits, calm faces, but I could see the cracks forming. I sat in the gallery with Claire and Gregory. Carol sat 2 rows back. Derek would testify as part of his immunity agreement, but until then, we waited. Rachel Torres stood before the jury on the first morning. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about greed, about a family willing to destroy lives, break laws, and commit murder to avoid consequences." She laid out the charges: environmental fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice. You'll hear testimony from Derek Harper, who will explain how these defendants manipulated him. You'll hear recordings of Charles Westbrook bragging about framing an innocent man. And you'll see financial records proving they stole millions and tried to destroy the evidence. Charles sat stone-faced. Gabrielle stared at her hands. The defense argued it was all a misunderstanding. Business decisions gone wrong. Derek was lying to save himself. The jury didn't look convinced. The first week dragged. Carol testified on day 2. She brought 5 years of financial records offshore accounts. Shell Company's payments to Eddie Morrison forged EPA documents. Every transaction traced back to the Westbrooks. But these aren't mistakes, Carol said calmly under cross-examination. These are deliberate crimes. Gabrielle's lawyer tried to shake her. Carol didn't budge. Then came the FBI. Agent Lisa Whitmore explained how Westbrook Environmental had been dumping hazardous waste illegally for 8 years, falsifying certificates, bribing inspectors, threatening witnesses. The anonymous tip that led us to Harper Waste, Agent Whitmore testified. We traced it to a burner phone purchased by Charles Westbrook. Charles shifted in his seat. First crack in the armor. By the end of the first week, the evidence was overwhelming. But the prosecution's key witness hadn't testified yet. Derek took the stand on Tuesday morning, 8 days into the trial. He wore a simple suit, no designer labels, no expensive watch. He looked like a man who'd made terrible mistakes and was trying to make them right. Rachel Torres led the questioning. "Mr. Harper, how did you meet Gabrielle Westbrook?" At a real estate networking event 2 years ago, Derek said his voice was steady. "She approached me, said she'd heard about my father's company." "When did you learn about Westbrook Environmental's financial troubles?" 6 months after we started dating. She said a merger with Harper Waste could save both companies. "Did you believe her?" "Yes." Derek's voice cracked. "I wanted to prove I was more than just my father's son." The questions continued. Derek admitted everything, giving the Westbrooks root information, client lists, financial records, helping them plant evidence at Harper Waste. "Why?" Rachel Torres asked. "Because they promised me power," Derek said quietly. "And I was stupid enough to think that mattered." Then the recordings played. Derek's phone connected to the courtroom speakers. Charles Westbrook's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. "William Harper will be in prison by fall, and if he fights back, we handle it like we handled Agent Collins. Brake lines, gas leaks, accidents happen." The jury leaned forward. Several took notes. Gabrielle closed her eyes. "Mr. Harper," Rachel Torres said, "why are you testifying today?" "Because my father almost died," Derek said. His voice broke. "Because I brought criminals into his life. And because I need to make this right." The defense tried to destroy him on cross-examination, called him a liar, said he was saving himself. "You expect this jury to believe you suddenly developed a conscience?" The defense lawyer sneered. "I expect them to listen to the recordings," Derek replied. Charles Westbrook's own words. The lawyer had no response. 3 days later, Eddie Morrison took the stand. He looked terrified, kept glancing at Charles like he expected retaliation, even in a federal courtroom. "But Mr. Morrison," Rachel Torres said, "you previously testified that William Harper ordered illegal dumping. Was that true?" Eddie looked at his hands. "No." "Why did you lie?" "She said Charles Westbrook paid me $50,000. Said if I didn't testify against Harper, he'd make me disappear like Agent Collins." Judge Brennan called for order as the courtroom erupted. "I'm sorry," Eddie continued, voice shaking. "I was scared. But I can't let an innocent man go to prison for something I lied about." Charles's lawyer objected. Too late. The damage was done. By the 3rd week, the defense was falling apart. Gabrielle testified on Wednesday. She tried to stay composed, claimed she knew nothing about her father's crimes, that Derek was lying, that she'd been manipulated too. Rachel Torres dismantled her in 20 minutes. Email after email appeared on the courtroom screen. Gabrielle to Charles. "Derek's father trusts him completely. We can use that." Another one. "Once EPA arrests Harper, we finalize the merger and move the offshore accounts." Ms. Westbrook, Rachel Torres said, "You weren't manipulated. You were the architect." Gabrielle started crying. Real tears this time, not the calculated ones from her wedding. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." She sobbed. "I didn't know my father would try to kill anyone." But the jury had stopped listening. Charles never broke. He testified in his own defense, denied everything with the same arrogant expression he'd worn throughout the trial. "I'm a businessman," he said, "not a criminal." But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the financial records, Derek's testimony, Eddie's confession. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned. On the charge of conspiracy to commit environmental fraud, How do you find guilty money laundering? Guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. 12 counts. Guilty on every single one. Gabrielle sobbed. Charles stared straight ahead, jaw tight. 2 weeks later, Judge Brennan delivered the sentences. My Charles Westbrook, you have shown no remorse. You endangered lives, destroyed reputations, and conspired to commit murder. 22 years in federal prison, $10 million fine. Charles didn't flinch. Like Gabrielle Westbrook, you were complicit in these crimes. But you've shown some remorse. 8 years in federal prison, $2 million fine. Gabrielle collapsed into her lawyer's arms. Derek Harper, you cooperated fully and provided crucial evidence. 18 months probation, 500 hours of community service. Derek closed his eyes. Relief and shame mixed on his face. The gavel fell. U.S. Marshals led Charles and Gabrielle away in handcuffs. Derek looked at me across the courtroom, his eyes saying everything words couldn't. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'll do better. I nodded once. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Gregory stepped forward and read a brief statement. William Harper has been exonerated. The EPA and FBI have cleared him and Harper Waste Management of all charges. Justice has been served. We walked through the crowd, Claire on one side, Gregory on the other, Derek following behind with his head down. Justice was served, but the real work was only beginning. 11 months later, I was sitting at Pete's Diner again. Same booth, same coffee, same view of the South Side streets I'd known my whole life. July 2025. Saturday morning, Pete brought me coffee without asking. The usual, Will. Yeah, thanks. A lot had changed in 11 months, but some things, the good things, stayed the same. Harper Waste Management was thriving. Claire had taken over as CEO officially in January. Revenue hit $41.2 million last quarter, 298 employees now. She'd landed 3 new commercial contracts and implemented route optimization that saved us 15% on fuel costs. Head. She told me last month, you built something that lasts. I'm just making sure it keeps growing. I was proud of her, more than I could put into words. The Raven Harper Foundation was doing well too. 45% of Harper Waste's shares funded it. In 11 months, we'd helped 73 families' medical bills, funeral costs, college tuition. The kind of help that kept people afloat when life tried to drown them. Every family we helped, I thought about Raven, about the legacy we'd built together. Derek was doing better. Not perfect, not healed, but better. He'd spent 8 months working as a garbage collector. 500 a.m. starts heavy lifting. Rain, snow, heat. Didn't matter. He showed up every day. Last month, Claire promoted him to route supervisor. $52,000 a year, managing a team of 6. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. Item. Derek told me over dinner 2 weeks ago, I never understood what you did until I did it myself. It's hard, it's real, and it matters. Something inside me shifted when he said that. Derek was dating someone new too. Sarah Campbell, 34, elementary school teacher. She grew up working ass and didn't care about designer clothes or expensive restaurants. She cared about Derek showing up on time and treating her with respect. Derek and I had dinner once a month now, 8 times so far. The first few were awkward, long silences, careful words. But slowly, it got easier. We talked about work, about Sarah, about Claire's leadership, about the foundation. Small things, safe things. We weren't father and son the way we used to be. Maybe we never would be again. But we were something. And that was enough for now. I'd found some peace too. 3 months after the trial, I'd driven west. Oregon, Washington, Montana, the Pacific Northwest. In winter, cold, quiet mountains cutting through the sky. I spent 3 months alone, hiking, thinking, letting the silence settle into the places where anger used to live. I thought about Raven a lot on that trip. About the promises I'd made to her. About the man I'd tried to be after she died. I'd kept my promises, protected our son, built a legacy, fought for what mattered. But I'd also learned something. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. I'd let go of the anger, the need for Derek to be someone he wasn't. And in that space, I found peace. The diner door opened. Derek walked in, saw me, and smiled. A real smile. He sat down across from me. Pete brought him coffee without asking. "Morning, Dad. Morning. How was your week?" Good." Claire landed another contract medical facility on the west side. Derek grinned. "She's incredible." "Yeah, she is." We sat in comfortable silence. The diner buzzed around us. Families eating breakfast, old men arguing about baseball, the clatter of plates in the kitchen. I got my route times down by 12% this month," Derek said. There was pride in his voice, real pride. Teams working well together. "That's good work. It feels good," Derek replied. He looked at his coffee. "I never thought I'd say this, but I actually like what I do now. It's honest. It's real. That's what matters." Derek looked up, met my eyes. "Dad, I need to say something." I waited. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on me. Even when I deserved it, my throat tightened." "You're my son," I said. "I'll always fight for you, even when I'm fighting against what you're doing." Derek nodded. His eyes were wet. Pete brought our food. We ate in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes when two people don't need to fill every moment with words. After breakfast, we walked outside together. The sun was higher now. South Side Chicago on a Saturday morning. People washing cars, kids riding bikes, the smell of someone grilling early. "See you next month?" Derek asked. "Yeah, next month." He held out his hand. I shook it, firm, honest. Then he walked to his truck and drove away. I stood there for a moment, watching him go. I thought about Raven, about the boy we'd raised, about the man he'd become, the mistakes he'd made, the consequences he'd faced, the work he was doing to rebuild. I thought about Claire, about the legacy she was protecting. I thought about the bridges I'd burned and the ones I was rebuilding. Some bridges take time to rebuild. You can't rush it. You can't force it. But if both people are willing to walk toward each other slowly, carefully, one step at a time, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can ask for. Second chances. And to you listening to this story, remember this. I didn't tell it to look strong, and I didn't tell it to look right. I told it because silence almost destroyed me. For years I confused endurance with wisdom. I believed love meant tolerating what slowly erased my dignity. That was my mistake. If I could give you one lesson from my own scars, it would be this. Don't wait as long as I did to draw a line. The Lord gives warnings long before collapse. But pride and fear can make us ignore them. I look back now and see how easily a man can lose himself while trying to keep peace. I kept giving, explaining, forgiving, hoping things would change on their own. They didn't. Pain only grew quieter and sharper. The Lord doesn't ask us to surrender our self-respect to prove our love. He asks us to protect what we've been entrusted with, including our work, our name, and our heart. This family story is not about humiliation or revenge. It's about accountability. It's about understanding that boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. When I finally stood up, it wasn't anger guiding me. It was survival. And in that moment, I learned that the Lord may allow storms, but He also gives us the strength to stand when they arrive. These grandpa stories aren't meant to glorify conflict. They exist to remind us that legacy is built through choices, not appearances. I had to accept my own responsibility too. I taught my son generosity, but I failed to teach consequences early enough. Don't repeat that mistake. Teach respect while there is still room for correction, not after damage has already been done. Every family story carries hidden weight. If you're living inside one that's draining, you hear me clearly. Protecting yourself does not make you heartless. It makes you honest. God gave me the courage to act when fear told me to stay quiet. And that choice saved my life in more ways than one. These grandpa stories come from a man who learned late but not too late. I believe restoration is possible, but it requires effort, humility, and accountability. Second chances are not owed. They are earned. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? Share your thoughts below. And if this family story spoke to you, consider sharing it with someone who might need it. Subscribe for more grandpa stories, because conversations like this matter. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Please note that upcoming stories may include adapted elements created for learning and reflection. If this kind of content isn't for you, feel free to step away and choose something that suits you better. I hope this ending reminds you that dignity, patience, and courage can coexist, and that choosing yourself today may quietly protect generations you'll never even meet someday ahead.